My uncle told my 9-year-old daughter she was a burden at our family dinner. Then she stood up and read what she had written about him for her school project. His lawyer called me before we even left the parking lot. Some people in my family still think I went too far. I need you to tell me. It was a Sunday in late September. We were at my parents' house for what my mother calls the monthly family dinner, which is really just an excuse for everyone to gather and remind me that I am the one who never quite measured up. My daughter Emma sat between my sister Caroline and my uncle Richard. She had her science project folder on her lap. She was working on a presentation about people she admired, and she had asked Richard earlier that week if she could interview him about his work as a commercial real estate developer. He had said yes. She brought her notes to dinner. The dining room was warm. My mother had made pot roast. Everyone was talking about Caroline's upcoming vacation to Italy and my brother Thomas's new boat. Emma waited for a pause in the conversation, then asked Richard if he could help her with one of her questions. He was cutting his meat. He looked at her and laughed, not a kind laugh. He said, "You're a burden. Stop asking for things." The table went quiet. My mother looked at her plate. My father kept chewing. Caroline reached for her wine. Thomas cleared his throat and changed the subject to something about the marina. Emma did not cry. She put her folder down. She finished eating. No one said anything to Richard. No one said anything to her. Then, when everyone had gone quiet again, Emma stood up. She opened her folder. She said, "I wrote something about Uncle Richard for my project. Can I read it?" My mother started to say something, but Emma was already reading. Her voice was clear. She said, "My uncle told me I was a burden. He said to stop asking for things. I wanted to interview him because my teacher said to pick someone I admired. I do not admire him anymore. I admire my mom instead. She works every day and never calls me a burden. She says questions are how we learn. Uncle Richard does not think I should learn. I think that is sad." She sat down. The room was completely still. Richard's face went red. My mother said, "Emma, that is not appropriate." My sister looked at me like I had orchestrated the whole thing. I had not. I was as surprised as anyone, but I was not sorry. We left 20 minutes later. I did not apologize. Richard did not apologize. My mother walked us to the door and said, "You need to teach her respect." I said, "I am teaching her exactly what I want her to learn." His lawyer called me at 8:15 that evening. I was putting Emma to bed. The lawyer said Richard was considering a defamation claim. I asked if he was serious. He said Richard felt humiliated in front of the family and wanted a formal apology. I told him I would think about it and hung up. I did not think about it. Let me tell you how we got here. My family has always had a specific vision of who I am. I am the one who never finished college. I am the one who had a child young. I am the one who works in sales, which my mother refers to as retail, even though I have explained the difference many times. My sister Caroline married a surgeon. My brother Thomas works in finance. My uncle Richard owns 4 commercial properties and never lets anyone forget it. I am the one they feel slightly embarrassed by, the one they are polite to, the one they give advice to at every gathering. When I was 23 and pregnant with Emma, my father sat me down and told me I needed to be realistic about my future. He said single mothers do not have the luxury of ambition. He suggested I find a stable job with benefits and focus on providing a stable home. I said I would. I did not tell him I had already started building something else. My family operates on a very clear hierarchy. My parents are at the top. They own their home outright, a 4-bedroom colonial in a suburb that has appreciated steadily since they bought it in 1997. My uncle Richard is next. He is my father's younger brother, and he built his real estate portfolio through a combination of good timing and family loans. Caroline and Thomas are next. They have advanced degrees and visible markers of success. I am at the bottom. I rent. I drive a 7-year-old sedan. I do not vacation in Europe. What they do not know is that I have spent the last 11 years building something they cannot see. I started in medical device sales when Emma was 6 months old. My first year, I made $48,000. My family thought that was fine, reasonable, enough to get by. My mother told me she was proud that I was being practical. What she did not know was that I had a commission structure that scaled with performance, and I was very good at performance. By the time Emma was 3, I was making 6 figures. By the time she was 5, I had moved into a senior sales role with a base salary of $90,000 and commission potential that my family would not have believed. I did not tell them. When my mother asked how work was going, I said it was fine. When my father asked if I had thought about going back to school, I said I had thought about it. I let them think what they wanted to think. At Emma's 7th birthday party, my Uncle Richard pulled me aside. He had just closed on his fourth property, a small office building in the downtown corridor. He was feeling generous. He told me that if I ever wanted to learn about real estate investment, he would be happy to give me some advice. He said it was never too late to start building wealth, even for someone in my position. I thanked him. I had just signed a contract with a healthcare network that would pay me $218,000 in commission over the next 18 months. I did not mention it. If you have ever been counted out by someone who should have known better, you already know what that silence feels like. I bought my first investment property when Emma was 8, a small duplex in a neighborhood that was just starting to turn. I paid cash, $273,000. I did not finance it because I did not want my name appearing on any loan documents my family might somehow see. I set it up under an LLC. I hired a property manager. I told my family nothing. At Thanksgiving that year, Caroline asked me if I had started saving for Emma's college. She said it with concern, the way you ask someone if they have thought about getting their brakes checked. I said I was working on it. She offered to send me some articles about 529 plans. I said that would be helpful. I had $65,000 in Emma's education fund and another $90,000 in a separate account I was treating as her future trust. Caroline does not know this. I bought 2 more properties over the next 2 years. I sold the duplex for $412,000. I rolled the profit into a small commercial space that I leased to a dental practice. My portfolio was generating $78,000 a year in rental income by the time Emma turned 9. I was still working my sales job. My combined income was close to $400,000 annually. My family thought I was doing fine. Getting by. Making it work. At my parents' 40th anniversary party, my brother Thomas gave a toast. He thanked them for teaching him the value of hard work and education. He mentioned Caroline's success. He mentioned his own career. He mentioned Richard's real estate ventures. He looked at me and said, "And we are all proud of how hard you are working to give Emma a good life." Everyone nodded. I smiled. I had closed a deal worth $340,000 in commission 2 weeks earlier. I raised my glass. My mother took me aside after the party. She said she wanted to talk about something sensitive. She said she and my father had been discussing their estate plan, and they wanted to make sure I understood that they were trying to be fair. She said they knew I was in a different financial position than Caroline and Thomas, and they had decided to structure things so that I would receive a larger portion to help offset the gap. She said it with such kindness. She was trying to help. I told her I appreciated it. She patted my hand. I went home and called my financial advisor to discuss expanding my holdings. The close calls started about a year ago, small moments where I thought someone might figure it out. My father asked me once why I was not more stressed about money. I told him I had learned to budget carefully. He accepted that. Caroline ran into me at a coffee shop near the downtown office buildings. She asked what I was doing in that part of town. I said I had a client meeting. She did not ask more. Thomas saw me getting into a car with a woman in a business suit. He asked later who she was. I said she was a colleague. He assumed sales. The closest call was 6 months ago. My Uncle Richard was having lunch at the same restaurant where I was meeting with my attorney, Patricia Reyes. We were discussing the structure of a new LLC for a property I was considering. Patricia is not subtle. She talks with her hands. She had documents spread across the table. Richard walked past our table on his way out. He glanced down. He saw the papers. He stopped. He said, "Legal trouble?" I said, "Just boring paperwork." He looked at Patricia. She smiled at him. He left. I watched him walk to his car. I waited until he was gone. Then Patricia said, "That was close." I said, "Not close enough to matter." I kept building. I brought in 2 more advisors, an accountant who specialized in real estate taxation, a financial planner who helped me structure Emma's trust in a way that would protect it and maximize growth. I filed every document carefully. I kept everything separate from my personal accounts. I told no one. The dinner in September was supposed to be routine. My parents wanted to celebrate my father's retirement. We gathered the way we always do. My mother cooked. My father opened wine. Richard talked about a new property he was considering. Caroline talked about her trip. Thomas talked about his boat. I sat quietly. I had signed a purchase agreement on a mixed-use building 3 days earlier. The property was worth $1.1 million. I was paying cash. No one asked me how my week had been. Emma brought her folder to dinner because she is 9 years old and she still believes that adults are good. She wanted to interview Richard because her teacher had assigned a project about admiration, and she thought her uncle, who owned buildings and drove a luxury car, must be someone worth learning from. She did not know what I knew. She did not know that Richard had borrowed $80,000 from my parents to buy his first property. She did not know that he had defaulted on 2 loans before finally finding success. She did not know that his confidence was built on a foundation that was thinner than it looked. When he called her a burden, something shifted. I saw it in her face. Not tears, not anger, clarity. She looked at him the way you look at something you thought was solid and realize is hollow. She finished her dinner. She waited. Then she stood up and told the truth. His lawyer called that night. I hung up. I called Patricia the next morning. I said, I think it is time. She said, are you sure? I said, yes. She said, I will start pulling everything together. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. I met with my accountant. I reviewed every asset, every account, every document. I had my financial planner pull statements. I had Patricia draft a formal response to the defamation threat. The response included a full accounting of my net worth, my income, and my holdings. It included a comparison to Richard's assets. It included a breakdown of every assumption my family had made about me over the last 11 years. It was 43 pages long. My mother called me during this time. She said Richard was very upset. She said he felt that Emma had been disrespectful and that I had encouraged it. She said the family was concerned about the conflict. She asked if I would consider apologizing to keep the peace. I said I would think about it. I did not think about it. Patricia called on a Thursday afternoon. She said, everything is filed. We are ready whenever you are. I am going to stop there for now. Part 2 drops next, and that is where everything I just described gets used. Every document, every number, every conversation. Stay right here. I want to know if you would have said what I said next, because I still think about it. Richard called my mother 2 days after Patricia told me everything was ready. My mother called me. She said Richard wanted to meet. She said he felt we should resolve this as a family before it went any further. She said lawyers made things worse. She said Emma's comment had hurt him deeply and he deserved an apology. I asked what time. She said Sunday at 2 in the afternoon at their house. I said I would be there. I called Patricia. I said, Sunday at 2. My parents' house. Can you be on standby? She said, do you want me there? I said, not inside, but close. She said, I will be in my car 2 blocks away. Call me when you are ready. I spent Saturday going through everything one more time. The property deeds, the LLC documents, the tax returns, the financial statements, the trust paperwork for Emma, the purchase agreements, the lease contracts. I had copies of everything organized in a folder. I also had digital copies on my phone. I was not going to need them all, but I wanted them available. Emma asked me where I was going on Sunday. I told her I had a family meeting. She asked if it was about what she said at dinner. I told her it was. She asked if she was in trouble. I said, you are not in trouble. You told the truth. That is never wrong. She said, Uncle Richard was mad. I said, Uncle Richard is going to be fine. Sunday arrived. I drove to my parents' house. I parked on the street. I sat in my car for 3 minutes. I checked my phone. Patricia had texted. Ready when you are? I texted back, going in now. My mother answered the door. She hugged me. She said, thank you for coming. I know this is hard. I said it was fine. She walked me into the living room. My father was there. Richard was there. Caroline was there with her husband David. Thomas was there. They were all sitting. There was one empty chair. I sat down. Richard started. He said, I want to begin by saying I do not think Emma is a bad kid. I think she was having a bad day, but what she said was hurtful and it was inappropriate. I think we can all agree on that. He looked around the room. Everyone nodded except me. He continued, I am willing to move past this if we can get a sincere apology. From you, and from Emma, I think that is fair. I said, no. My mother said, sweetheart, can we just talk about this? I said, there is nothing to talk about. Emma told the truth. You called her a burden, Richard. You told a 9-year-old child to stop asking for things. That is what happened. She does not owe you an apology. I do not owe you an apology. Richard leaned forward. He said, I was having a bad day. I said something I should not have said, but she humiliated me in front of the entire family. There are consequences for that. I said, you are right, there are. Caroline said, can we not do this? Can we just apologize and move on? This is exhausting. I looked at her. I said, you were sitting right next to Emma when he said it. You did not say anything. She looked away. She said, I did not think it was my place. I said, it was absolutely your place. She is 9. My father cleared his throat. He said, I think what Richard is trying to say is that family is important. We do not always say the right things, but we forgive each other. That is what family does. I said, is that what you think we are doing here? Forgiving each other? He said, I think we are trying to keep this family together. I said, this family has never been together, not the way you think it has. Thomas said, what is that supposed to mean? I said, it means you have spent 11 years assuming I am barely getting by. You have spent 11 years feeling sorry for me. You have spent 11 years offering me advice I did not need and help I did not ask for, and I let you, because it was easier than explaining. Richard said, explaining what? I said, that I do not need your help, that I have never needed your help, that I am doing significantly better than you think I am. He laughed. He actually laughed. He said, you are a single mother who works in sales. I am not trying to be cruel. I am stating a fact. You rent. You drive an old car. You are doing fine. But let us not pretend you are in the same position as the rest of us. I said, you are right. I am not in the same position as you. I am in a significantly better one. The room went quiet. Caroline said, what are you talking about? I said, I own 4 properties, 3 residential, 1 commercial. My portfolio is worth approximately $2.3 million. I have no debt. I paid cash for everything. My rental income is $78,000 annually. My sales income last year was $396,000. My total net worth is approximately $3.1 million. I have been building this for 11 years. You just did not notice. No one spoke. My mother looked at my father looked at Richard. Richard stared at me. Caroline said, that is not possible. I said, it is not only possible, it is documented. I can show you the tax returns if you would like. Thomas said, why would you not tell us? I said, because you never asked, you assumed, and I let you assume, because your assumptions made my life easier. If you are still here, hit like. I need to know you saw that. Richard said, I do not believe you. I pulled out my phone. I opened the folder with my financial documents. I handed him my phone. I said, third document, that is my most recent statement from my property management company. Scroll down, you will see the addresses, you will see the rental income, you will see the property values. He took the phone. He scrolled. His face changed. He said, this is real? I said, it is all real. Caroline said, how did you even do this? You had a baby. You were working full-time. When did you have time to buy real estate? I said, I made time, I worked, I saved, I invested, I did not go on vacations, I did not buy new cars, I built something instead. My father said, why did you not tell us? We could have helped. I said, you did help, you underestimated me. That was the most helpful thing you could have done, because it meant no one was watching. Richard handed my phone back. He said, so what, you have money. That does not change what Emma did. I said, Emma told the truth about you, she told the truth about how you treated her, and your response was to threaten legal action against a child because your feelings were hurt. He said, she humiliated me. I said, you humiliated yourself, she just wrote it down. My mother said, this is getting out of hand. Can we please just calm down? I said, I am calm. I have been calm for 11 years. I have been calm while you told me to be realistic. I have been calm while you offered me advice on budgeting. I have been calm while you structured your estate plan to give me extra money because you thought I needed it. I have been very calm. Richard stood up. He said, I am not going to sit here and be lectured by someone who hid her finances from her own family. I said, sit down, Richard. He did not sit. He said, you do not get to tell me what to do. I said, your lawyer sent me a letter threatening defamation claims. My lawyer sent a response. The response included a full accounting of my assets and income. It also included a comparison to your assets. Would you like to know what we found? He said nothing. Caroline said, what did you find? I said, Richard owns 4 properties. Total value approximately $1.8 million. He has mortgages on 3 of them. His total debt is $940,000. His net equity is roughly $860,000. His rental income after debt service is approximately $32,000 annually. He tells everyone he is a real estate developer. He is actually leveraged to a point that makes him vulnerable. Richard's face went red. He said, you had no right to investigate me. I said, you threatened to sue me. My lawyer did her job, and what she found was that you have been presenting yourself as significantly more successful than you actually are, which is fine. But it means you do not get to call my daughter a burden, and you do not get to demand an apology from me. My father said, that is enough. I turned to him. I said, is it? Because I am just getting started. Do you want to know what else I found? When you and Mom restructured your estate plan to give me a larger share, you did it because you thought I was struggling. You thought I needed help, but I do not. I have more liquid assets than Richard. I have more income than Thomas. I have a higher net worth than Caroline and David combined. Your estate plan is structured around a version of me that does not exist. My mother said, we were trying to be fair. I said, you were trying to be kind to someone you pitied. I do not need your pity. I never did. Thomas said, so what do you want? Do you want us to apologize? Do you want us to say we were wrong? I said, I want you to stop treating me like I am less than you. I want you to stop offering me advice I do not need. I want you to stop assuming you know anything about my life, and I want Richard to apologize to Emma. Richard said, I am not apologizing to a child who embarrassed me in front of my family. I said, then we are done here. I stood up. My mother said, where are you going? I said, I am leaving. I came here because you asked me to. I explained the situation. Richard refuses to apologize. There is nothing left to say. Richard said, you think you can just walk out of here? You think this is over? I said, I think this was over the moment you called Emma a burden. Everything after that has just been you realizing you made a mistake. He said, I made a mistake. You are the one who lied to this family for 11 years. I said, I did not lie. I just did not correct your assumptions. There is a difference. Caroline said, how are we supposed to trust you now? I said, I do not need you to trust me. I do not need anything from you. That is the point. I walked toward the door. My father said, if you leave now, this family will not be the same. I stopped. I turned around. I said, this family has never been what you think it is. You have spent decades building a version of reality where you are at the top and I am at the bottom. You built that version because it made you comfortable, but it was never true. I let you believe it because it did not matter to me, but it matters now. Because you let Richard call my daughter a burden, and none of you said a word. That is who this family actually is. My mother started crying. She said, we love you, we have always loved you. I said, I know you love me, but you do not respect me, and I am not interested in being part of a family that does not respect me. Richard said, you are going to regret this. I said, no, I am not, but you might. I had one more thing to say. I looked at Richard. I said, your lawyer sent me a defamation claim. My lawyer drafted a response. The response is 43 pages. It includes a full breakdown of my financial position. It includes a comparison to yours. It includes statements from witnesses who were at the dinner. It includes Emma's school project in its entirety. It includes an analysis of why your claim has no legal merit. And it includes a countersuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress against a minor. My lawyer is prepared to file it if you proceed. Richard said, you are bluffing. I pulled out my phone. I called Patricia. I put her on speaker. I said, Patricia, I am at my parents' house with my family. Richard is here. Can you confirm that you have the countersuit ready to file? Patricia's voice came through clearly. She said, I have it ready. I can file it within 1 hour of your instruction. The claim is for intentional infliction of emotional distress. We are seeking $250,000 in damages. We have witness statements. We have the school project. We have documentation of the dinner. The case is strong. Richard said, this is insane. Patricia said, Mr. Richard, this is Patricia Reyes. I am her attorney. Your letter threatened legal action against my client for something her daughter said. The daughter is 9 years old. She told the truth. Your threat was inappropriate and legally baseless. If you proceed, we will proceed. I suggest you speak with your own attorney before making that decision. I said, thank you, Patricia. I hung up. The room was completely silent. My father said, you would actually sue your own uncle? I said, he threatened to sue me first. I am just responding in kind. Caroline said, this is insane. This whole thing is insane. I said, no. What is insane is that a grown man called a 9-year-old a burden and then threatened legal action when she told people what he said. What is insane is that none of you stopped him. What is insane is that you called me here to apologize to him. Thomas said, what do you want from us? I said, I want Richard to apologize to Emma. In writing, a real apology, not a legal letter, not a conditional statement, a real acknowledgement that what he said was wrong. If he does that, I will instruct Patricia to stand down. If he does not, we file on Monday morning. Richard said, you cannot be serious. I said, I have never been more serious about anything in my life. My mother said, Richard, please, just apologize. This does not have to go any further. He looked at her. He looked at my father. He looked at me. He said, fine, I will apologize. I said, in writing, by tomorrow night. Sent to my email, a real apology. He said, fine. I said, good. I walked to the door. I opened it. I turned back one more time. I said, one more thing. I am removing myself from your estate plan. I do not want the extra share. I do not want the help. Divide everything equally between Caroline and Thomas. I will send you a formal letter declining my inheritance. You can do whatever you want with it. My father said, you do not have to do that. I said, I know I do not have to, I want to, because I do not want anything from you that is based on the belief that I need saving. I never needed saving, I saved myself. I left, I got in my car. My hands were shaking. I sat there for 5 minutes. Then I called Patricia. I said, it is done. She said, how do you feel? I said, I feel like I just burned down a building I spent 11 years constructing. She said, did you want to keep that building? I said, no, I really did not. Richard sent the apology the next evening. It was 3 paragraphs. It said he was sorry for what he said to Emma. It said he had been having a difficult day and he took it out on her. It said she did not deserve to be spoken to that way. It said he hoped she could forgive him. It was not perfect, but it was real. I showed it to Emma. She read it. She said, does this mean I do not have to see him anymore? I said, you do not have to see anyone you do not want to see. She said, good, I do not want to see him. I said, that is fine. Richard's real estate portfolio collapsed 6 months later. He had been unable to refinance one of his properties. The mortgage came due. He could not pay. He lost the building. Then he lost another one. By the time a year had passed, he owned 1 property. He sold it to pay off his remaining debts. He is still working, but he is not a real estate developer anymore. My family does not speak to me the way they used to. My mother calls once a month. We talk about Emma. We talk about the weather. We do not talk about money. My father sends birthday cards. Caroline and I are polite when we see each other. Thomas and I do not see each other. That is fine. Emma is 10 now. She is working on a new school project. This one is about people who stand up for themselves. She asked if she could interview me. I said yes. My portfolio is worth $3.7 million now. I bought 2 more properties last year. I am considering a small office building downtown. My sales income is steady. Emma's trust is fully funded. She will have everything she needs for college and beyond. I did that. Not my family, me. I still think about that dinner sometimes. I think about the moment Richard laughed when I told him I was doing better than he thought. I think about the look on his face when I showed him the documents. I think about my mother crying. I think about my father saying the family would not be the same. He was right. The family is not the same. Last month, my mother called. She said Richard had asked her to reach out. She said he wanted to know if we could have coffee. She said he wanted to make things right. I asked what that meant. She said he wanted to rebuild the relationship. I told her I would think about it. She has called twice since then. I have not answered. Did I go too far?